President al-Assad received the UN Envoy to Syria, Mr. Kofi Annan. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov says some countries seek to foil Annan's plan for launching dialogue among all Syrians. On the anniversary of the massacre perpetrated by the French occupiers against the Syrian parliament in 1945, Minister of Interior visits the People's Assembly and recites verses of the Holy Quran for the souls of the martyrs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. President Bashar al-Assad received this morning the UN Special Envoy to Syria, Mr. Kofi Annan. Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid al-Muallim discussed with the UN Special Envoy to Syria, Kofi Annan, the current efforts to implement the plan which both sides agreed on, with the aim of ending violence, reaching a peaceful solution, and restoring stability and security into Syria. Al-Muallim reviewed with Annan what is taking place in Syria currently and the attempts to target Syria and create chaos in the country. He also reviewed the reform steps taken by the Syrian leadership on all fields. Al-Muallim reiterated Syria's keenness to overcome any obstacle that faces the UN observers' mission and called on Annan to intensify efforts with the other sides and the countries that support them, which are trying to foil his plan through financing, arming, and providing shelter for the armed terrorist groups. Mr. Annan stressed the world community's support for his plan and keenness to continue coordination with the Syrian leadership, praising the latter's cooperation in facilitating the implementation of the 6-point plan for establishing security and stability. He said his talks covered ways of overcoming some of the obstacles that may come in the way of implementing the plan in light of the observers' current work on the ground in Syria. He expressed appreciation for Syrian cooperation in facilitating news media men's entry into the country, as well as in the domain of a humanitarian activity through the work of the International Red Cross Committee and the Syrian Red Crescent Organization. He thanked the Syrian government for the protection it provides for the UN monitors during the performance of their tasks. He also lauded Syria's announcement of the formation of a committee to investigate al-Hola massacre, a step that reflects the Syrian leadership's earnest effort to establish security and stability in the country. Deputy Foreign and Expatriates Minister Dr. Faisal Maqdad has talked about all the facilities offered by Syria for the success of the UN observers' mission. During his meeting with the UN Envoy to Syria, Al-Maqdad reiterated the Syrian government's commitment to Mr. Annan's plan and that no single breach by the Syrian government of this plan has been recorded. He pointed out that the armed terrorist groups have violated the plan several times at the instruction of the countries supporting them, which do not want Annan's plan to succeed, so that more Syrian blood would be shed. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov announced that Moscow is worried about attempts to foil Kofi Annan's plan in Syria. During a joint press conference with the Foreign Minister of Peru, Rafael Ronca-Gayello, in Moscow, Lavrov pointed out that some countries began to manipulate the situation in Syria following al-Hola massacre, taking this as an excuse to put more pressure on the Security Council to take military pressure measures against Syria. He added that some parties are working to foil Annan's plan, calling on all sides to resort to dialogue because it is the only means to solve the crisis. The spokesman for the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Ramin Mahmam-Brest, warned that efforts to destabilize Syria represent a threat to the security of the whole region, as it serves the interests of the Zionist entity. In a press conference, Mahmam-Brest called on the countries which support violence in Syria to stop their practices and start supporting Annan's mission. He renewed his country's condemnation of the terrorist acts against the Syrian people, calling on all sides to resort to dialogue. An explosive charge blew up last night while terrorist Muhammad al-Rifai was preparing it in an apartment in Rukn al-Din neighborhood in Damascus. The blast caused his immediate death and killed his nephew and seriously injured his other nephew. The authorities found several explosive devices in the house of the terrorist, with which he had intended to target innocent Syrian civilians. In Hama, the authorities today stormed into armed terrorist groups' hideouts in Mash'al Arabian neighborhood. The group had committed crimes and attacked public and private properties. A large number of terrorists were arrested and the weapons in their possession were seized, including rifles, RPG launchers, a mortar gun, explosive charges provided with timers, BKC machine gun ammunition, poisonous gas, hand grenades, communication materials, stolen and smuggled medical equipment, and stolen government cars. The authorities also stormed into an apartment used by a terrorist group in Daraa. A BKC machine gun, automatic rifles, military bags, masks, and communication equipment were found, in addition to medical materials and medicines of Saudi and Jordanian origin. Maps and drawings of vital positions and installations were also found. Marking the anniversary of the massacre committed by the French occupation against the Syrian parliament garrison on the 9th of May 1945, Minister of Interior Major General Muhammad Sha'ar visited the parliament and recited verses of the Holy Quran for the pure souls of the martyrs. After that, Assembly Speaker Muhammad Jihad al-Laham held a meeting with Mr. Sha'ar. The Arab Club in Damascus held a celebration honoring Syrian poet Suleiman al-Isa for his poetic career, attended by a group of journalists and intellectuals who praised the poet's firm commitment to Arab national causes. More on the following.
Suleiman al-Isa was born in 1921 in the village of Nuayriya, situated 20 kilometers to the west of the historical city of Antakya. He received his first education under the mulberry tree shadowing the houseyard. He learned the Quran, the famous pre-Islamic poems, the famous Mutanabbi collection of poetry, and a great many other Arabic poems. He started writing poetry at the age of 10, and his first collection described the misery and weariness of the peasants. After the separation of his native district, Iskandaron, he emigrated to other parts of Syria to continue national fight against the French mandate. He was imprisoned many times for his poetical poems and attitudes. He shared in the foundation of the Ba'ath Party while still at secondary school in Damascus. He lived in Aleppo from 1947 to 1967, teaching, writing, and sharing in the national struggle. His biography for children, written in poetry and then in prose, was entitled I'm Telling You My Childhood, O Small Ones. His second autobiography was A Child While in his search for his homeland. In October 1982, he received the Afro-Asian Writers Union Lotus Prize for poetry. In 1984, his poetical works for children received the prize of the Arab League Educational, Cultural and Scientific Organization. In 1990, he was elected as a member of the Arab Language Academy in Damascus, and in 2000 he received the prestigious Babatin Prize for Poetical Creativity. He is considered one of the greatest Arab modern poets in the recent era.
With this, we end our news bulletin for today. For more information about Syria and the region, you can visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Up next, the latest business, al-market news.